It's a dark, cold day in Russia, sometimes in the future. In general, things are gloomy. Economy is not great. After war was declared in early 2023, most of Russian males were mobilized into Russian army to fight Ukrainians. And economy was put on war track. It became war economy. New legislation was used, introduced the new laws, the old existing laws were put in effect, and most private companies were nationalized, and people started working for the government, producing rockets, guns, bullets, and everything else that military needs. The war itself is not going really good. The goals of the war are not clear. The government keeps changing goals every so often. It announces one thing as a goal, then sometimes later things change and it changes the goal and forgetting about previous goal altogether. The previous goal disappears from the informational space. And that keeps on going on. The morale of Russian army troops, not great, because people don't really know what exactly they are fighting for, and the questions start mounting. What is clear is that it's the war not with Ukraine, but with the collective West. And the few companies that actually joined the collective West. So therefore, it became the war of Russia with the world. The entire world these days wants to wipe Russia out off the map. So therefore, it's been upgraded to war, Russia versus the world, us versus them. One thing that hasn't changed much is Russian propaganda. It's still the same. It's very effective. It's very clear. It's very well financed. It's great. Putin is still the president of Russia. And he's still liked by many Russians, and he's still supported by many Russians, and many Russians still support in general what Russia does. Putin is definitely publicly admired by the propaganda, same as ever. Well, it's a dark and gloomy day in Russia. Weekday morning. Before rushing to work, to make more guns, more bullets, and more rockets, people get their daily fix of coffee and they turn on the news, TV. And surprise and even shock, there's nothing on Russian TV except for Swan's Lake. On every single channel, there's Swan's Lake. Everyone is shocked. Howdy, everyone. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where I speak of today's Russia, giving you latest news, updates, my takes and opinions on things happening. The usual Russia explained by the unusual Russian. And today I am going to give you one scenario of what happens after Vladimir Putin ceases to become to being a Russian president. Well, that day sooner or later will come because none of us is eternal. So, what I am about to tell you is just a fantasy. Okay, that's not definitely not a forecast or a prognosis of any kind. That's a fantasy. So, treat it as that. Without further ado, let's jump right into that fantasy. Vladimir Putin passes away. Swan's Lake on every single channel. No one knows what really happens because no one is told that Vladimir Putin passed away, the night before. But everyone understands that something very serious happened, very serious. And then that magnitude of that happening is absolutely incredible. No one says what happened. No one says what, anyway, no one is saying anything on Russian TV or in Russian internet. Of course, Russian internet by that this time is controlled by the Russian government. So Swan's Lake everywhere. Everything and everyone is on pause. People start asking questions. They start whispering, "Oh, what's going on? What happened?" Independent media outside of Russia, that used to be inside Russia, but then in February, March, and April of 2022, stopped working in Russia and moved outside of Russia. Channels like Серебряный дождь, Silver Rain, political experts such as Khodorkovsky, entertainers such as Varlamov, they are full of conjectures. They just keep on guessing and giving their versions, but they don't know for sure because no one knows exactly what happened except for very few people inside the Kremlin, very few. And they're too busy at this moment to be talking to the world. They're too busy. They have an agenda. Russian media personalities, controlled by the government, but propaganda personalities, disappear from the Russian media space on day one. Well, obviously, Swan's Lake. But they fear, all of them have day off. Some are in the offices and some left. They all fear. They understand that something is going to get down, something real big and something serious. And some of them even getting drunk. Ukraine is celebrating. Entire Ukraine is celebrating victory, and Ukraine military starts preparing for a very swift, very fast offensive, a push. But it's secret. No one knows about that. The entire country of Russia is frozen in time. The only action is happening, and it's happening real big time, is deep inside the Kremlin walls. The spot has been just vacated. It's vacant now. It's up for grabs. This chair. The power struggle in the Kremlin is at the level unseen before. It's insane. The spiders are out and they are eating each other. The goal is simple. There are a few groups of influence in the Kremlin. Some are weaker and bigger, some are stronger and bigger, and some are weaker and not as big, but they all are the players, and they want their representative to take the spot, number one. They want their representative to be there and control everything and has a great deal of control. They negotiate tirelessly, without stops, all day long. They are, it's like a volcano erupting. That's the best way to compare it. That's how day number one passes. Day number two, things are more active on day number two. People start talking. People start whispering. People start discussing, making guesses. They understand in general what happened because, in the USSR was the same thing. When the leader passed away. There was a Swan's Lake for some time, few days, So history repeats itself. New Russia, new Russian media, new Russian propaganda and power did not invent anything new. They decided to, take old model, dust it off a little bit and use it. People are talking. People are getting angry. People have questions. Why aren't they telling us anything? Do they think we're stupid? Oh, yes. They definitely think you're stupid. The negotiations inside the Kremlin walls are absolutely heated at the highest level of heat now. The groups are so, in conflict right now. They're so trying to find out a compromise on a person who's going to be put in charge that, it's so heated. There's been a couple fist fights, and that's not good. And everyone understands that everyone needs to negotiate instead of going into a war. Not time to go to the war. Everyone inside the groups understands that time is running out. Time is precious now. One more day in the situation that the power, such a fragile thing, it'll be lost. Things will go on out of control. Once they start going out of control, you can't grab, you can't, you can't get them back into the control easily. It's going to be something big and bloody, and they don't want that. They want swift and easy, unnoticeable change of power, but they want to be number one. Each one group wants to become number one. The biggest problem is how to convince other groups, so they keep on negotiating. The Ukrainian military last night started offensive. It started pushing. Russian reconnaissance, military reconnaissance, got some information about Ukrainians start moving. So the higher ranking officers decided to move to safer positions and make orders from there. And the soldiers, they started seeing that. And the lower ranked officers, they also started seeing that. So there's been a lot of questions in the army, and it's been unrest. Meanwhile, Ukrainians went on all-out offensive. Both soldiers, Russian soldiers and officers, not very happy. They know what is expected now. Day three brings news. After all-nighter, after negotiating relentlessly, without any sleep, the spiders in the Kremlin reach out in agreement. The successor is picked. 3 groups, strongest and biggest, most influential groups, agreed on one person. And they draw the lines of power. 2 smaller groups are given ultimatum whether to accept or be destroyed. One group accepts the ultimatum and agrees. The second group does not, and it's in opposition to this decision. They are to be destroyed in the future. They just don't know about it yet. The plan for the following steps is sketched out. People can finally get some sleep, and somewhat are happy, and some people are very happy. Passing away, Vladimir Putin is announced. Well, to the country, it's not a shock. It's not a shock because it's day number 3 of Swan's Lake, and most people are not stupid. Vladimir Putin announced that he passed away after long and heavy illness, just like they did in the USSR. And a lot of people start asking, why didn't they tell us about the illness before? But no one listens to those people, Who cares? Vladimir Putin is announced the hero of Russia and the savior of motherland. Many people start grieving. Some don't grieve. Vladimir Putin is instantly canonized and glorified. The funeral is set in 2 days. Meanwhile, Ukrainian army, seeing the best opportunity, and starts pushing harder and harder. And soldiers, they see that they're not given orders anymore. They hear this official news that the president passed away, and they just start doing the best they know, regrouping to the other places where they feel safer. So they start massively and fastly, quickly regrouping. Day 5, Vladimir Putin's funeral. It's televised, is glorified in the best tradition of the USSR, in the Politburo USSR. Hundreds of thousands of people come to say last goodbye, to see him off. But strangely enough, some prominent politicians and TV personalities in Russia who are expected to show up, they don't show up. And they're nowhere to be found, nowhere to be seen. No one knows where they. And there are some questions. Where's this person? And where's that? Why is that person is not at the funeral? But you know what? There are bigger questions to be asked right now. But the absence is noticed. The successor is introduced, and he's taken by the people because people feel they kind of have no choice. The Kremlin is happy. The power, this fragile thing, is preserved. Oh yes, my precious. What so they think? It's preserved and kept in the Kremlin inside. It's not given to anyone. It's the same people, and the gray cardinals, the puppet masters. Shadow. They are still in the shadow. Very few people know them, but they're there. They instruct the new president. And a few words about the new president. The guy is weak because no one needs a strong person as the new president, because president automatically he becomes public person and he gets lots of power. Even though he's controlled by someone, but he still gets lots of power. And in the future, he might beef up his power. He might start playing his own game. He might start pushing those puppet masters away a little bit, one by one, and then who knows what happens, okay? This is what happened to Vladimir Putin. No one thought he would do that, but he turned out to be a strong man, not a weak person. And they don't want that to happen. They want to control the show. So the guy who is made the successor, he's fairly known, but not much. He's been to the front lines. He's considered very courageous person. He shed blood for Russia a little bit. And he's considered the right person, to be put in charge. And people, and generally, some don't care because they think they have no control no matter what happens, no matter who's put as the president. But some actually approve him. The Shadow Masters are happy. The roadmap is created. And now, time to restore and strengthen their power in the provinces. Because what happened in Moscow, in the federal center, the power has been preserved. And it's been passed. Now, we get down to the ground. Because Russia is a federation, as we all know. And it consists of many provinces. As a head of every province, there's the governor. And the governor holds lots of local power, or he's supposed to hold. But the governors in Russia, they're especially after the start of the war is announced there, just appointed from the Kremlin. And that's all. So it's time to start strengthening the power in the provinces. Meanwhile, the offensive is continuing, and Russian soldiers don't know um, what to do next. And the generals, they keep silent because they don't know what to do themselves. The Kremlin all of a sudden is too busy with this power thing and no one tells them what to do. And everyone understands that it's time to make peace. Everyone is tired of war and everyone is tired of the bloodshed. And people in Russia are just, they want it to be over and somehow they want to return to their normal lives. The Shadow Masters, they also want peace. They understand that they're gonna be much better off blaming someone for the mistakes of the past and cleaning off their hands because they're also tired of war. They are tired of being under sanctions from the West. They want peace. They want sanctions to be called off, at least be called off them and their families. They want to go back to southern France, to their large castles, mansions, yachts. They want to go to Florida, sunny isles. They want to go to the Maldives and Seychelles, Dubai. Oh, they have lots of property in Dubai. They want to their normal rich luxury life back. They're tired of staying in Russia. They want peace. They want normalcy return. They want to make friends with the West again. Well, week number 2. A few voices start appearing on Russian TV saying that attacking of Ukraine was a mistake. A mistake? Who made that mistake? Well, obviously, the big guy, the big boss made the mistake. Putin made the mistake. But Putin made an honest mistake because he didn't know what he was doing really. He was misinformed. He was fed lots of fake information from Russian army intelligence and reconnaissance, and from KGB and the agencies like that. So he didn't know, but that was a mistake anyway. He was misinformed. Interesting, because Russians had never heard anything like that for a long time. Meanwhile, negotiations with the governors begin. The game is on. The talks are on. Now let's talk about the governors. How do you think the governors have felt since day one? They understood on the day one what happened. They understood. They were informed because, they are big shots in the Russian power scheme. But they started asking questions. What's going to follow next? All communication with their Kremlin masters was stopped because the Kremlin was busy with different things. And most of governors, they're not stupid. They understood what was to follow. They understood that the new power deal, would be signed in the Kremlin among the groups. He understood that the next thing is that the new bosses, they will start looking down and they will need new people, their own people, in charge of the provinces, because current governors, they're Putin's people. So they need to be replaced. Not instantly, because that would be revolution. People wouldn't approve, but gradually over time. And the governors don't like that. Oh, they want to hang on to their power for as long as they can. And now all of a sudden they realize that for the first time in their political careers, they have some real power in their hands. Because they are on the ground in charge of the provinces, in charge of people, and in charge of the different agencies. because each agency, such as KGB, Army, etc., they have representation in the province. And although formally they are introduced, they are a part of, the Moscow structure, they're still on the ground in the province. So the governors start negotiating with the elites. They start on the day one and they keep on negotiating. They keep on making deals. They get support of the locals. They even go as far as to the heads of KGB and the army and so forth. And they want to get their support. If they can secure the support, they have an upper hand in negotiations with Moscow that are to follow. And the governors know that. Week 2, negotiations start. The new president, the new puppet masters, or the same old ones, but in the new positions. And they start reaching out to the governors. And they want to make friends with the governors, but, the game is on. The negotiations start. But some people start standing up and making themselves heard. Very unusual for modern day Russia, but that sooner or later it had to happen, and it happens now. And in some provinces, there's order from the Kremlin to continue the same policy of suppression as was before. But in some provinces, governors tell the power agencies, stay away from the people, and there are no arrests made, and people actually start gathering and start speaking up and start being heard. And that is a very clear sign to Moscow shadow masters that the governors start playing independently, because the Kremlin's orders are not executed. So first, conflicts appear, and that's only week 2, after Vladimir Putin passes away from the old age. We all mortal. But people are the few, and they're mostly not heard, because this is not what today's Russia is all about. It's not about people. It's about power struggle. Week number 4. The unseen war with the governments starts. Well, it started some time ago, but it just starts getting very, very strong. It's easy to say. The war is not universal. Some governors decided to take Kremlin's offers. Some governors are very strong, and they have got support of the local agencies and the local people. And so there's few are strong, few are weak, few have fallen already, and everyone else is in between. And Kremlin is again doing sleepless nights, trying to come up with the strategies how to regain control of the provinces. There's a huge map on the wall in one of the Kremlin's cabinets, and every province is, it's divided. Russia is divided into provinces, and every province has information on activists, on the governor, on current status, and so forth. The war for power is on. Accidentally, few governors slip and fall out of the windows of their 2 or 3 story homes, regular homes. Of course, it's accidents. On the week 5, KGB and the army strike back. They literally drop a bomb. They create a public joint press conference, and they reveal the secrets of the invasion of Russia to Ukraine. They say, wow, that was a mistake because we provided all truthful information, and they give proof. They give the documents, they give, all these reports and so forth. It's really hard to say that whether these reports were given or not, but they present the evidence and they say, we gave it to Vladimir Putin and he made a decision. Moreover, he announced, and he said many times it was his personal decision and he had all the information available to him. Meanwhile, Ukrainian army is at the border of Russia. They are celebrating victory. The entire Ukraine is celebrating victory, but they're not pushing further into Russia. They stop at the border between Russia and Ukraine. The new president supports the army and the KGB, saying, yes, Vladimir Putin made a mistake. The entire propaganda on the dime turns the direction, and Vladimir Putin in days is deglorified and vilified. There are voices there start calling for the peace treaty with Ukraine. Well, obviously mistake was made, and now mistake needs to be made up. A peace treaty is signed with Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine, and it's not favorable towards Russia, but it's signed. Many Russians that believe the goodness of Russia's actions are shocked. Some start committing suicides. The power struggle between the Kremlin and the governors is on. In the Far East, the governors on the week 5, week 6, week 7, it's really unclear when, but at some point, people wake up and understand that some of the consultants and advisors of the governors in the Far East provinces of Russia speak Chinese. In the central Russia, in the western Russia, some of the consultants speak English. Month 2. The struggle is very much heated. At this point, Kremlin is very disappointed. It understands that it failed to seize power right away. And there's a long and tough power struggle ahead. And what happens at the end is unclear at this point. Before, days after passing of the old president, it was very clear for them that they won. They won. Everything was going according to the plan. And now everything is not going according to the plan. And they're upset. They're angry. They fear they make lots of orders, and many orders are not obeyed. Month 2 is interesting time. Russian economy is doing worse than ever. And people get sticked. Then let's fast forward to month number 6. It's summertime now. Days are longer, warmer, brighter. It's not cold anymore. Usual warm time in Russia. People are very depressed because now they completely realized what happened in the last couple years. They understand that there's such a tragedy happened. There's so many lives were lost. The real number of lives taken in Russia and in Ukraine is released, and that number is shocking to everyone. And people just don't really know what to do and what future brings to them. They feel betrayed, they feel lied, they feel miserable. The Kremlin is not doing that well. The governors, some are very strong, and no one has claimed independence. Russia is still Russia, but in fact, the governors act independent on the ground. Some of them contradict Moscow and they don't listen to the orders. On the first day of month 7, the shadow masters, that not too many, and the president are summoned into one of the conference rooms, and they get calls from the Chinese telling them to back off certain governors or face consequences. Chinese corporations get into certain provinces and start working there. And somehow governors get protection and influence. Same thing happens, but from the Western companies, from European companies, and from the USA. They summon the puppet masters and they tell people of what not to do and who not to touch. And large American corporations get into certain provinces and they mostly start extracting mineral resources. On day 7th, on month 7th, first day of month 7, the puppet masters have no choice but to accept what is told to them. And the new status quo of the new country is born. The balance is finally found. The new country is born on the day 1st of month 7, and the results of a previous murky times are these. Russia is still one state on paper, but it has not fallen apart. But in reality, different governors control different provinces, and Kremlin does not control the entire Russia any longer. If it wants something from the governors, it must negotiate and find compromises. Every province is different. It has different level of independence and different level of power. Some provinces are stronger and some are weaker, and some under complete control from the Kremlin, and some don't have any control from the Kremlin at all. The rule of law is not central, meaning some laws, federal laws, don't work in certain provinces, and some laws are introduced locally. And people, businesses, and the governments live by local laws in some of the provinces. The Chinese and the Western corporations moved into Russia and are to stay there. People are the ones who lost. And this is the country that is created by the results of actions of Vladimir Putin. That is his new legacy, and that is how he is remembered in this scenario. Again, I am not sure if this scenario is going to happen. It's more like a fantasy, but it's something to think about. It's been my message for today. Thank you so very much.